Welcome back. A 40-year-old agreement between public colleges in South Dakota and Minnesota is coming to an end.
Starting next year, reciprocity tuition rates between the states will no longer be an option. KELOLAND's Lauren Solich tells us what that means for current and future students in both states.
For the last 40 years, students in South Dakota choosing to attend a higher education institution in Minnesota had a somewhat steady idea as to what their tuition rates would be. The same could be said for Minnesota students coming to South Dakota due to a reciprocity agreement.
South Dakota students going to Minnesota would pay the average in-state South Dakota rate, and then vice versa. Minnesota students coming to South Dakota would pay the average in-state Minnesota rate.
In December, the South Dakota Board of Regents decided to not renew that agreement for the 2024-25 school year. Lucas says they did that so Minnesota could instead be added to the Dakota Advantage program, giving Minnesota students the standard in-state tuition rate for South Dakota's universities.
And we ended the reciprocity agreement so we could lower rates, saving new Minnesota students coming to South Dakota about $1,400 a year.
It's a different story for South Dakota students wanting to attend school in Minnesota, though.
Based on what we've heard, the decision from Minnesota was to increase the rate for those students and give them the traditional out-of-state rate for attending in Minnesota.
To get a better understanding of what the new rates will be for students, we checked the current tuition prices in both states. Take, for example, Minnesota State University in Mankato. The current reciprocity agreement rate for South Dakota students attending school there is $8,438, but the out-of-state rate is $16,731. In South Dakota, the in-state tuition rates for all 6 public universities this year ranges from about $7,600 to $7,800.
If you're a South Dakota student enrolled in Minnesota or vice versa, and you're currently enrolled, the reciprocity agreement will phase out. So you'll essentially get treated just like you have as you continue your degree pursuits. But then for new students coming in is where you'll see the change.
In Sioux Falls, Lauren Solich, KELOLAND News.
We reached out to the Minnesota Office of Higher Education for more information on the changes, but we just received a statement confirming what the South Dakota Board of Regents told us. To read that statement, visit this story on KELOLAND.com. There, you can also find links for the current tuition rates in both states.
With the close